Welcome to the Overstock Academy weekly podcast, where we help online sellers go from amateur sellers to elite online sellers in 8 weeks or less. We focus on finding unsold name brand store overstock products and reselling them online in places such as eBay, Amazon, Shopify, and even your own website. Overstock products are the same highly profitable name brand products that you know and trust, which basically means that if you do it right, they almost sell themselves. And the do it right part is what this podcast is all about. Welcome back, Overstock Nation. Thank you for joining me for yet another jam-packed episode. Today we're going to talk about storage and organization. Now, I enjoy talking about this topic because there are some tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you that are super simple yet extremely effective. I can't tell you how many questions I receive about this topic. In fact, it's probably one of the most active topics in the Overstock Academy community. I enjoy hearing and seeing the aha moment when one of our members learns these strategies and just how simple it is to implement them. Now, whether on a small or large scale of inventory, these strategies can help you with your inventory management, storage, and organization. They help you save money and make you more efficient and professional. But before I go into those tips and tricks, as always, I want to give you a backstory about how and why I came up with these systems. I remember it was, quote, busy season, and I was shipping out quite a few items each day. By this time, I believe I had started buying between 4 to 6 wholesale pallets at a time. Now, I was still in my garage, so you can imagine the space limitation that I was dealing with. Now, I'm going to pause and I want to add a small note here. I know not all of us have a home with a garage or much space for that matter. You might live in an apartment or in a house with roommates or any type of home with limited space. I don't want you to give up on this and say, this won't work for me because Amy was struggling and she had a garage. I don't even have a damn garage. I can't do this. By thinking like that, you are literally defeating yourself. Today's episode is especially for you because it's all about how to get organized and make this work, limited space or not. Also, remember that you don't have to buy wholesale pallets. You can buy smaller lots from the vendors that we recommend at Overstock Academy. So let's get back to my story. So at this time, I didn't really have a system in place. What I would do is after I would inspect the items, I would take pictures and list it for sale. I would kind of just set the item down in an area that was clear and I would move on to the next item. Eventually, my listed items ended up in different places throughout the garage and my entire house for that matter. By the way, I don't recommend anyone doing that, and here's why. I was selling some pretty high-end overstock home goods from a well-known department store. In one pallet, there was a lot of about 35 pieces of KitchenAid 5-quart metallic stand blenders. These mixers were the main reason I bought this lot to begin with. These things were retailing for over $600 at the store. I had bought them for about $80 each. I had planned to sell them online for between $5 and $5.50. The margins were great, but the lot was a mixture of brand new unsold units to shelf display units to store returns. What that meant is I had to inspect them to make sure that they worked and had all the accessories and components before I could list them. First, I had to unwrap all 6 pallets and separate the items. I was really looking for the mixers because that's where most of my profits would be coming from. Next, I tried to figure out which ones were brand new by checking if they were still sealed. Guess what? None of them were, which meant I had to check each one and inspect them physically. At Overstock Academy, we call this inspection step processing. Now, in a later episode, I will explain to you why this is really, really important when dealing with overstock products. I had a competitor who was too lazy to perform this step and ended up shutting down due to customer complaints. Also, this step shouldn't take you too long. In our trainings, we guide you on how to do this fast without wasting time on stuff that really doesn't matter. So I was able to go through the first few and they were in pretty good condition. I mean, most of them could be sold as new. As I went through them, I set them aside in an area that was clear and then I'd move on to the next one. As soon as I felt that I had enough to list, I started listing them. Now, I listed them in batches based on their condition. So I listed several in the new category and several in the new other category. There were still more that needed to be inspected, but it was getting pretty late, so I left them where they were and I called it a night. For the next couple of days, I moved on to other products since I felt I had enough mixers listed to sell for a while. Now, about 3 days passed, and I finally sold the first mixer. This was a specific one. I had listed it at about, I believe it was a $50 discount because it was missing a couple of the accessories, and the bowl had a small dent in it. Like we show you at Overstock Academy, I had taken pictures of all of this and mentioned what was missing in the description, so my buyer was well aware. See, I told you people buy things even if they're not in perfect mint condition. So I had finally sold a high-end ticket item. I was so excited because I had waited a few days for these mixers to start selling, and I was anxiously awaiting to hear the ka-ching notification on my phone. The buyer paid immediately, but since it was later in the day, I decided I would package and ship the item in the morning. However, in the morning, the problem was I could not locate the item. I went through piles of different inventory. I was searching for this one particular mixer. Now, I had tons of mixers. The boxes all looked the same, so I was rummaging through box after box. I was in panic mode because I could not find the item anywhere. I started questioning if I threw the item out on mistake, or did someone take the item from my garage? I mean, where could it possibly be? Now, on the marketplaces, my listings were set up to be shipped out within 1 business day, so I needed to find and ship this item as quickly as possible to avoid getting negative feedback or a late shipment mark against my seller rating. I was already on thin ice with my account having just been reinstated, like I told you, after getting scammed by a wholesaler. I didn't want to go under review again for not shipping out in the time frame stated. Also, I wanted to avoid the buyer messaging me asking where his tracking number was. So 2 whole days passed, and when I tell you I looked everywhere, so I thought. I even got my husband to help, and if you know him, he's not very good at finding things that are right in front of him. But I needed all hands on deck. I was completely dumbfounded about where this item could possibly be in my now very messy garage. I then had to do the one thing I feared most. I had to message my buyer, cancel, and refund the entire order. I just lost an item, I lost a sale, and I lost a potential repeat buyer. Now, still at a loss of where my item was, I double-checked my records to make sure I had not shipped the item to another buyer on mistake, and this wasn't the case. Lo and behold, about a week after I refunded the buyer, I stumbled onto a brown unmarked box mixed in with other empty brown boxes that I was saving for shipping products. And there was that dang mixer, nicely packaged, inspected, and ready to be shipped. I never looked within my shipping supply area because, I thought it was all shipping supplies. So at that moment, I realized I lost a $499 sale because I lacked a storage and organization plan. That is when I knew I had to change the way I was doing things. I had ramped up my buying, and now it was time to ramp up my systems to match that. Over the course of the next several weeks, I tried different methods, did some research, and came up with the information I'm going to share next. Remember that this information can be applied to your business whether you're just starting out, maybe you're expanding, or you've been in business for a while and you've been struggling to find an inventory management and organization plan. I used this system from the time I was in my garage, when I outgrew that and moved to a storage unit, and then finally into my warehouse. In fact, one time a buyer actually came into my warehouse after just leaving my competitor's warehouse and was very impressed and complimentary of how well organized it actually was. At Overstock Academy, we guide you to create the same system for yourself. It is so efficient that when you hear the ka-ching sound on your phone, you will instantly be able to tell exactly where an item is as soon as it sells without leaving your couch. That's why I'm confident it'll work for you too, at any level. Essentially, inventory management is a system that's used to oversee the flow of products in and out of your business, right? Now, you may decide to incorporate one key inventory management technique, or you may decide to combine a variety of these techniques to meet your needs based on what you are selling. Your storage and organization setup should take place before your items arrive. You don't want to do what I did. You want to have a system in place so you can start right off the bat with a system that works. But if you have inventory already on hand, go ahead and clear your space and start taking action today. If you have already bought your products and you know what you'll be getting in as far as your inventory, then it's time to get started. Let's first talk about where to store your products. When starting out, most sellers are going to use their garage or a basement. Now, if you don't have either one of those, a spare room will work, or even a storage shed. Now, I only suggest a storage shed if the items you are selling are able to withstand the weather changes. You wouldn't want to put clothing out in a shed that's not properly insulated and water or snow could damage the clothes. Or, you wouldn't want to store cosmetics in an outdoor shed in the middle of a Florida summer. The last resort is to rent a storage space. This is not something that I suggest when you first start out. This is because it's an added expense. Plus, having to store your products away from where you will be working on them involves you having to go to the storage unit sometimes multiple times a day or week. When I outgrew my garage and prior to moving into a warehouse location, I used a storage facility that was right up the street from my house. And I first loved it because I was able to have a lot more space in my garage while I worked, but I quickly began to despise going to the storage unit. And this was because I had to continuously stop what I was doing and go there several times a day. Even though it was literally probably less than 2 miles away, it was a pain. Now, if someone asked me a question about an item I didn't have right at my house, I'd have to drive down to the storage unit and check out the item. Or if multiple items sold in one day, I would go to the unit and get those items so I could ship them out right away. Sometimes that would be several times. Now, a lot of time was wasted driving back and forth to the unit. With that being said, though, I will say this. Don't limit yourself from purchasing more inventory because you don't have the space. There's always a way and there's always a balance, right? If you are implementing the steps that we show you at Overstock Academy and you know that you could make more sales if only you had more products, but you just don't have the space, then yes, definitely look into a storage unit. Your sales will justify the cost. You could increase your handling time also for 2 days, so you're not rushing to get everything out the next day. Also, if you plan out your day better than I did, you could go to the storage unit maybe just once a day. You could drop off your listed products and pick up your sold products all at the same time. One thing I have to mention is make sure that the storage unit is safe and your products are safe. Most storage units do carry some type of insurance, so you should be okay. Next, let's talk about shelving and racks in your bins. You want to have some sort of racking or shelving depending on what you're selling. You can decide what size and weight limit you will need. The point here, though, is a rack or a shelf is going to allow you to stack 4 or 5 high without damaging your boxes by just sitting them on top of each other. Once you have your shelving or your racks picked out and situated, you will want to give each rack a shelf number. You will actually label the location like I'm about to describe. Basically, we are giving each location a physical address just like you have on your street. I'll guide you through 4 steps on how to do this. Now, this is a tad difficult to explain without images, so if you go to the episode notes at overstockacademypodcast.com/115, I posted a diagram that you can follow along with what I'm describing. So step 1 is the physical address. Let's say your shelf or rack has 4 levels. You will label them level A, B, C, and D. And then let's say that within each level you have 2 bins, so bin 1 and bin 2. Now, bins could be actual storage bins, or you could simply just split your shelf up into 2. Label the left side 1 and your right side 2. Again, just stick with me here. This is a lot of information to take in without visuals, but if you want, you could pause this episode now and go to the episode notes at overstockacademypodcast.com/115. Use the diagram while we go along, and this will all make sense. For example, if I placed an item on the right side of the second level of my storage shelf, the physical address would be B.02. So that's level B, bin 2 is where I would find my item. The second step is the SKUs. So now that you have your shelves or your racks and they're labeled, let's talk about the actual products for a minute. With your products, you will want to assign them a SKU. This is a stock keep-in unit. This will be their internal unique identifier. Every single one of your products should be assigned a SKU. I'm going to get a bit technical here, so try to stay with me. Here's how the SKUs work for me. If I received 10 mixers, for example, 5 of them were brand new, so I would assign them a SKU like RD-2455. If 2 of them were new, but let's say had damaged packaging, I would then give them the same SKU, RD-2455, but I would add a 0.1 at the end. So it would read RD-2455.1. Let's say another one of the same exact item had a dent in the bowl. It would read RD-2455.2. And let's say the last one was missing accessories. It would be RD-2455.3. You see what I'm doing here? This is especially important when you have multiples of the same items with maybe a slight variation. The idea is that as long as the items are not identical, they get a different SKU. When you go to the address your item is assigned to, you will confirm that you are picking the right item by matching it to the correct SKU. The point of all of this is to know where your items are at all times. You have to have this type of system in place to know where your items are. Step 3, label your items. Next, if you have a label maker or even blank labels, you'll need to label each item with the SKU number. You can easily find blank labels for $5 on eBay. This system might seem like it's a lot of work, but it's really easy once you get into it. And at Overstock Academy, we guide you through how to do it. Just trust me on this. When your business grows, you'll be thankful you have this system. I could spend hours trying to argue the pros and the cons of this, but all I'm going to say is this. This system is the reason I was able to run a $500,000 operation with just 3 people, including myself. Step 4 is inventory management. Now, there's going to be several ways to do this. A, you could use a simple list that has the item SKU and the physical address. Or B, you could use an Excel spreadsheet and enter the SKU and physical address. C, you could actually enter the address at the bottom of your product description within the marketplace. That last trick is actually pretty cool because on your listings, only you will know what that code means. It will mean nothing to anyone else. However, when your item sells, you will know exactly where it is. Now, in the case of a spreadsheet, let's say you have a mixer and you've assigned it SKU number RD-2455 and its location is row 4, bin 2. On your spreadsheet, you will have this notated. So when your item sells, you will search your spreadsheet for the SKU number and find the item's exact location. You see how that works? When you have 50 to 100 and 100 to 500 products, you're not going to remember where every single item is. You need this system in place. Okay, remember to never write the SKU or anything else for that matter on the actual product box. We always want to keep the retail box as clean as possible. Now, at a later stage, when your business is showing some growth, we will show you some software solutions that automate this and make things super easy. But right now, as you're starting out, we like you to keep your expenses low and lean. Now that we've covered storage solutions, let's talk about why inventory management affects your bottom line. Let's start with your Excel sheet or list or the software that you choose to enter your products with their SKUs and location. Okay, on this document, you can add more information that will help you manage your inventory better. You never want to, quote, sit on items for several months. Okay, if you add the date you listed your items for sale, you can have that information at hand. And if it's been more than 30 days, go ahead and reevaluate the price or even run a sale on the items that you've been sitting on for longer than expected. With the strategies we show you at Overstock Academy, you should have enough profit margins to do this and still remain profitable. On the other hand, if you just toss your items on your storage rack or shelf and you don't look at it again until it sells, you could find 6 months have gone by and your item has been outpriced and has no chance of selling at this point. You also always want to deal with your slow-moving items quickly to ensure that they don't become obsolete or in some cases, pass their use-by date and expire. If you're selling a food product or even cosmetics that have an expiration date, You will want to be sure you have those dates notated on your inventory list so you can monitor that they sell before they expire. One way of doing this is what's called FIFO. This means first in, first out. If you're receiving new inventory to restock and you sell a couple items while you're uploading the inventory into your system, you will want to ship out the inventory that has been on your shelf, and that was first in, right? That way you can avoid it being on the shelf even longer and your new inventory can take its place. It's kind of what the supermarkets do with food. When they restock their shelves, they put the new product in the back and they push the product that's been on the shelf longer to the front. And lastly, inventory management helps cash flow. Not only does good inventory management save you money, it also improves your cash flow in other ways. Remember that inventory is product that you've likely already paid for with cash, checks, or even a wire transfer. You're going to sell it for cash. But while it's sitting in your warehouse or on your shelves, it's definitely not cash, right? Try paying your landlord with 500 iPhone cases. It's not going to work, is it? This is why it's important to factor inventory into your cash flow management. It affects both sales by dictating how much you can sell and your expenses by dictating what you have to buy. Both of these things factor heavily into how much cash you have on hand. Better inventory management leads to better cash flow management. When you have a solid inventory system, you'll know exactly how much product you have, and based on sales, you can project what you will run out of and make sure you replace it on time. Not only does this make sure you don't lose sales, critical for cash flow, but it also helps you plan ahead for buying more so you can ensure you have enough cash set aside. Now, before we wrap up today, I'm going to answer a couple questions that I received prior to this episode. The first question is from Christy Francis. She says, "Hi Amy, what type of mailers or boxes would you suggest for shipping clothing?" Hi there, Christy. When it comes to clothing, I would simply suggest a poly mailer. These can be the ones without the bubbles. The only thing you want to be sure of is that they are the plastic mailers, not the paper ones. The paper ones run the risk of getting wet in the rain or the snow and can damage the item. However, if you are shipping multiple pieces of clothing to the same buyer and the weight is heavier, then a flat rate box might be more cost effective, so be sure to compare prices. But for a single item, definitely just a poly mailer. The second question is from Joel Walsh. He says, "I live in a small apartment and I have utilized all my unused living space for storing my products. I don't mind storing more products at my parents' home, but they live about 20 minutes away. Any suggestions?" Well, Joel, today's episode probably answered your question, but one thing that I didn't touch on much is this. You could always consider keeping your fast-moving products on hand at your home and moving your slower-moving products to your parents'. Only you would know the rate your products move, so that may or may not be an option for you, but just something to consider. You could also change your handling time on your marketplace to be more than just 1 day. You could add maybe 2 or 3 days at the very most. Now, I would only suggest this, though, if you think there may be an issue with getting to your parents' house within a day of the item selling. For your marketplace rating, you would rather extend your handling time and end up shipping the item faster than having a 1-day handling time and not being able to meet that, causing your item not to be shipped on time. Your seller ratings will suffer from this if it happens continuously. All right, so that's going to wrap up today's episode. Please don't forget to check out the free trial to the Ultimate Store Overstock course. If you just go to overstockacademypodcast.com/115, then click on the link at the bottom of the page. That's going to take you to the free 7-day trial of our most popular course. And like I said before, we don't even ask for your credit card to access the trial. It is a true free trial and it's totally worth checking out. We are here to take you from selling slow-moving, low-demand products to in-demand, name-brand products. We show you techniques that, if done right, your products will basically sell themselves. That is how we take you from an amateur online seller to an elite online seller in just 8 weeks or less.